Hi, this is Russell from Low Fruit Solutions, and today I'm going to be talking about using tags within your Shopify articles and when to create another blog. So first of all, what are tags? Well, if you're familiar with Shopify, what you'll notice is some of your articles, you have the ability to attach little metadata tags, which look like a bit like this on some of the articles that you may have if you choose to display them within your theme. And you can see here these particular little articles have, some have a couple of tags and a few have a lot more. So why would you use tags? Well, for anyone who's familiar with more commonly utilized CMS systems like WordPress, you'll find that when you create posts, which are sort of aligned with what Shopify are calling articles, you have the ability to break them down in specific ways. Categories being one, and then to use tags as another. In Shopify, you don't have the option to use categories, which would kind of be similar to using type for products. So you really only have tags to categorize your articles, right? So in other words, to split them out within your blog into specific themes or subjects that your readers can identify with, and ultimately that also then lends the ability to build relationships between articles, right? Because if you were to click on an exposed tag within your articles, it would then bring up a list of all the other articles with the same tag. So tagging is really the only way that you can break down a number of articles into specific categories, right? So now how do you design or build your tagging for articles? It's probably something you've not really thought about, right? You see a lot of themes with or sites where they only have like a single tag on their article, etc. Which, if you have a lot of content built up over time, because content does add to your SEO, is probably not how you want to have things designed, right? What you want to think about is your articles. Think about them being like books in a library. Now, if you walk into a library and you have an interest in a specific subject, call it windsurfing, how are you going to find anything related to that? Well, libraries use a system, right, where they break down, starting at the root of all things, which would be books, fiction, non-fiction, and then they go into specific subjects. Now that's kind of how you want to take the same approach within your blogs. So you're going to have to excuse me in here as I swap to what's a pretty awful looking PowerPoint, but it's the only way I can really describe what I call the onion of relativity. And it's the onion because as you peel into it, as you get more specific, things become more narrow and smaller around the number of articles. So I've used an example here for a pet store. Right, now your universal tag would be everything in the highest level of subject matter. Right, in this case it's a pet store, so every article should have pets on it. And I'll get into why that will change down the track, but for now we'll just say that the universal is pets. The next section you would have is, well, pets break down into different types of pets, right? So dogs. Now the specific article that we've created is related to flea treatments for dogs. So your subsection or your next layer of tags would be pet health, flea treatment, and then you be specific. Now specifics are really when you start to get down to the almost unique for that specific article. So when you start talking about places or specific people, those are the type of tags, right? They're really the finest grains of your criteria, if you will. Now, so what does that mean? That means is if I was reading this particular article about flea treatment for dogs, it would naturally incline that I am a dog owner, concerned with my pet health, and obviously I'm interested in the flea piece. Now, we don't always just write articles for fun. So naturally, if I have tools at my disposal that allow me to leverage that relativity, for instance, to sell treatments for fleas or to show additional content related to flea treatment, then those will come up first if I use tools like in ProBlogger and so forth, where you would have related articles or related products shown specific to that article that use tags, you would get fleet treatments coming up first in the product system, because ultimately people are reading about it, are most inclined to then make purchase decisions based on the subject matter they have. And likewise, if they want to read more, then you'll get more articles related to flea treatments for dogs and the general dog health. So as another example, let's just have a look at the next one here. This one. Gardening, right? So if you have a large store with multiple different subjects, you would have potentially gardening, lawn care, and then your subsection being lawn mowers, mowers, petrol mowers, and then the more specific stuff around that particular article. Now, it kind of also then gets around to the next point. Well, when and why would I create a secondary blog? In my personal opinion, and this is my personal opinion, you should try keep all your content in a single blog, unless it disobeys a very simple rule. And this is a very good example to look at, right? Is that here we have a number of articles attached to the universal of gardening. Now, if your store sells not only gardening equipment, but kitchen equipment, it would make no sense to have articles related to kitchens and gardening together, because there are no overlaps. There's no overlap on your universal. So your highest tier, this universal gardening, there would be no overlap with kitchens. And that's when I think you would create a secondary blog. I mean, some people obviously use it for tools, if they have very specific authors who are contributing their own dedicated subject matter material. That kind of lends itself more into where you are selling content. But as a Shopify store owner, typically you're selling product. And it makes sense that you attach articles to your products in that sense, right? So if you're selling, attach blogs to your product lines. So if you have kitchen products, you would have a blog that's related to kitchen products, the use of them, best recipes, etc., right? To expand on that. If you're also selling lawnmowers, then it makes sense that you would have a gardening specific blog, because the likelihood of there being overlaps is very minimal, and that way then they become self-contained, and the products associated to them, you can basically create a very dedicated landing pages and all sorts to bring in both the human and the robot audience via SEO to those pages, and then generate more traffic and therefore ultimately more revenue. So going back to the when we looked at the pet store thing right now, so if you had the same line, just looking at that, right, is where you had pets and then you had cats, dogs, health and fleas. They all have a bit of overlap, except the cats and dogs, right? So if you're in one section, and I don't just say that because it's they're two different parties, but it would mean that if you were looking at an article related to dog health and fleas, you would also, the same article specific to fleas and health would also then apply to articles about cats where those particular tags had been written in. And that way then, as I was saying, if you have your product line, even though it may look like there's different things, like why would you not have a blog for dogs and a blog for cats? Is because it's quite likely you will have overlaps in between, specific to things like pet health, veterinary services, fleas. I'm pretty sure dogs and cats both get fleas and so forth, and that's why you would try and maintain a single blog. The other consideration that you'd want to have around whether you want to create multiple blogs is, are you willing to maintain multiple blogs? Because it's a lot easier to put content into one and then choose to display that in your store in a very curated way, as opposed to having 6 different blogs, each with 2 articles in them, and then there's no relativity between them. Something to consider. So looking back at our store now, just for those of you not familiar, we did another video around the basics of blogging, which is worthwhile to look at around creation of tags and so forth. But just in case you missed it, we're just going to go to the store just so I'll show you how and where you would do tags. So this is the store dashboard. If we click on online store, it'll expand the next option, and just underneath it we're going to find blog posts. I'm going to see there's a number of blogs here. Now if you wanted to create a new blog, you just click on manage blogs here, and you will get the option once it loads in this page. Taking a little bit of a while, but you'll get an option to create a new blog, or to and you would give it a name, and that's how you would create. If you had like multiple product lines, you would create kitchenware, gardening, and so forth, right? That'd be the way to do it. Otherwise, as I was trying to describe, I'm not sure why it's taking so long to load. Shopify having a little bit of a moment. But these are the things I would, say you consider, right? Is whether you really need to have a dedicated, specific blog for your product lines. And if not, if your product lines are all similar, or you feel that there is overlap between them, then leverage that. Leverage that with your articles. Create articles that are specific, and if you really need to, like you could go, as I was trying to show you with the specifics here, you could go to that level of tagging specific products as your specific item, right? So if you have, in this case, I've put Novartis here as they're a pharmaceutical manufacturer, but you would actually put, flea treatment, let's just assume by X. So that way then the specific is really the product that it is you're trying to align to, and you could do that right now. The good thing also about having a system like this is that it then becomes very easy to maintain if you understand how it's laid out, right? So that's why I say it's always worth putting a little bit of planning into how your tagging structure for your articles will be. It's not just for you, it's obviously ultimately for your readers and consumers to be able to find material that is best suited for them. Let's just see if that's loaded now. Here we go. So just to create a new blog, you just go here, click on Add Blog. You'll get a option to specify a title, and to go through the comments and etc. As mentioned in our previous video, the blogging basics in Shopify, you make sure your title is relevant to your subject line. So if we were creating one that was specific to gardening, we would call it gardening. That would make the most sense. Yeah. Okay, so let's just go back just to have a look at where to find tags. And all right, so just looking at this blog post, it's not going to have much of a bunch of material, but for the point of this exercise, we're just going to have a look at where the tag section are. So here, right at the bottom right-hand corner, we've got tags. In this case, we started off with universal, which is fruit. We've then gone down to our subsection, which is tropical. Now, you don't always have to have the 4 layers. I mean, in this case, we have only got to the third one. The specifics, if we really want to get specific in this case, we could say queen pineapple. That's a very specific type product. We could add, a number of other tags specific to other products or articles in here, and then that would then make it the center of the onion, if you will. Anyway, I hope that was a useful little presentation and gave you some food for thought around tagging within your articles and when to create secondary blogs. Just remember, you really want to concentrate your energy and effort into